Perfect. Let's give it just a minute or two for anyone else who's joining to connect, and then we'll get started. In the meantime, uh, if you guys are sitting at your laptops, open up your VS Code with a project that you're currently working on, or even an old project. Just open up your VS Code editor with a project and be ready. We're going to be talking about some Visual Studio Code things today. And it's going to be better if you follow along today instead of just listening in. So yeah, just keep something open in the background if you can. If not, you can always follow along later when the recording goes live on YouTube. Okay. I think actually let's get started. We are already a little late. Sorry about that. That's my bad. Okay, so today what we're doing is oh, sorry about that, William. I think the recording will go on YouTube a little bit later today, so you can follow along then. So yeah, today what we're doing is I'm going to show you some cool Visual Studio Code extensions that are available. So Visual Studio Code, the text editor, the IDE that we recommend you use is quite powerful on its own, but it can be even better. And so fortunately, Microsoft has uh, enabled extension support, right? Just like with most IDEs, there's the option to install plugins and extensions that add additional functionalities to your IDE that can help improve productivity, to streamline your workflows, to add in new features that you need depending on what the type of projects you're working with, and all kinds of things. So today I want to go over a few of those. I have three shortlisted, although there's dozens and dozens that I would really like to highlight, but obviously we don't have the time for that. But let's see if we can get through with these three. So today I'll show you how to install extensions, and I'll show you how to configure some of them to better suit your needs. So I'm going to try and share my screen. Just let me know once it pops up for you guys. There we go. Let me know if you can see that. One second, I don't have the chat open. How do I open the chat from here? Oh, there we go. All right. Perfect. Okay, cool. So open up your Visual Studio Code. I've created just a little clone of the Pine City Zoo app, or just even the index page and the style.css pages, just for demonstration purposes. Now, to install plugins is actually very, very easy, right? You can either do it from your browser, or you can do it directly from Visual Studio Code. I personally find it a lot easier to do it from VS Code because you don't have to go anywhere else. So in the left-hand side of the screen, you got these 5 icons. The last one is actually the extensions tab. That's going to allow you to manage currently installed extensions, but also install new extensions. So you click on that. I'm just going to expand this for now so you can see what's going on. So VS Code will come with a few installed already, right? These are the default ones. They'll also have some recommended plugins that you can install, but you can search up here for extensions of any kind that you want to install. So the first one I want to talk about today is called Prettier. So let me just get it installing. You can just search it right up there, Prettier. It's this first one, and you can see the name up there is Prettier as well. There's a few other ones, and there's a few plugins for the plugin. Can you believe that? But this one here, Prettier Code Formatter, that's the one you want to install. So you just click on that, click Trust Publisher and install. And within like a minute or two, even less, a couple of seconds, it's going to install. Now, what Prettier is, it's a automatic formatting tool for your code projects. So, working with projects, especially when your code files start to get really, really long, it becomes very important to observe proper formatting because it makes your code more readable and easier to edit and change things around later on in the future. But it is a little time consuming sometimes to go and do this. And sometimes if you're working with multiple people in a project and someone doesn't really observe, doesn't have the good etiquette when it comes to formatting code, it can be a big problem, right? So format in your code is critically important. And in fact, if you pay attention to the grading rubric on the projects that you submit, the practical project you submit, there is a category specifically for formatting. So you can get marked down if your code is particularly untidy and messy. And that just highlights the importance of proper code formatting. Now, Prettier is a plugin that's going to do all of that for you. It pretty much handles all your formatting needs. But the nice thing about Prettier is that it can be configured by you to format your code how you want it. So you don't have to go with the defaults, the default styles and formatting that it comes installed with. You can have a file where you tell Prettier what kind of formatting to use where, and it will use that for your entire project, right? So let's go back to my index file here, right? And notice that the formatting on this file is terrible, right? To say the least. I mean, around here we got some good formatting, but then here these divs are not indented at all, so it's going to be hard to see where's the corresponding closed divs at a glance. Here there is some indentation, but it's not consistent with here, right? So here it's like space bars, here it's tabs, right? Terrible, right? Now I can go in manually line by line and start editing all of these, or now that I have Prettier installed, let me just use that a little bit. What I can do is just right click, go to Format Document With, and now that we have Prettier installed, you'll see this Prettier show up at the top. You click on that, and okay, it didn't work. Let's try that again. Format Document With and Prettier. Okay, one second. Let me just try restart in VS Code. Sometimes these plugins need a reboot before they work. Code. There we are. Right. Now we should be able to format with and go away zoom. That bar at the top keeps showing up. How do I make that go away? Can I? Oh, there we go. I can just move it to the bottom of the screen. There we are. Yeah, so right click, format document with, and click on Prettier. Why isn't it working? Okay, that is odd. It should be formatting my code. Let me just check if it's properly enabled. Yeah, it is enabled. Okay. Well, just as well. So by default, it should format your code, but it uses Prettier's own configurations, which isn't really ideal. I would just would have liked to demonstrate that, but I'm not too sure why it isn't cooperating. But what you need to do here is sorry, let me just look at the chat. So yeah, Tawfiq says, I think you need to configure it first. Yeah, so by default, it comes with its own formatting defaults that you may or may not like. And then you can go in and further customize it based to be more specific to what you're looking for. William says, I tried Pretty as well, but I think it needs some other extensions. I use another formatter by pressing Shift Alt F. Cool. Do you mind sharing the name of that formatter with us? It might be easier to set up than Prettier. Prettier is, I think, the most popular one. But yeah, it can be a bit problematic sometimes. I have no idea why it isn't working the way it should. But let's go in and start messing around with the settings, and we'll get it to work. So the first thing you can do when you are configuring Prettier is to do it directly from the settings. So over here at the bottom left of the screen, there's that gear icon. Click on that and click on settings. And you can just search for format to get your Prettier settings. Now, by default, you'll see this box is unchecked, format on save, right? Okay, I think this is probably why it wasn't working. So let me see if I disable that and I go to my index file again. Now it should work. No, okay, never mind. Right, so head back to settings and click on this box here, format on save. So what that's going to do is, by default, you'd have to do that process that that I showed earlier. You right click and you go to format document with, and then you go to Prettier. But now what you can do is format on save. So every time you save your project, it'll save automatically. And then I think, yeah, I think that should be good for now. So now if we go back to our code, and I'm hoping this works. If not, I have no idea why this plugin is acting up. It does have an error at the bottom here. So it thinks it's doing something, but it's not. I'm not too sure why. I tested it earlier before the webinar and it was working fine. Huh, very strange. Maybe if I make a change and then save. Weird. Okay, I'm not too sure why it's not working. Let's see. Code format. Yeah, that's fine. Let's change the workspace settings as well to be prettier. Where is it? There we are. Huh. This is strange. I have no idea why it's not working at all. It's doing no formatting. Configuration is set up. Any suggestion, guys? Go for it, William.
Hey, Tala, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, so just try pressing Shift plus Alt plus F. I think that's the default format shortcut. Just give it a try and let me know.
Nothing. I see this. So the funny thing is it's popping up here like it's trying to do something, but it's not actually doing anything. Let's see again. Format document with here. Nothing. All right, let's try GPT. Why don't we? GPT. But this is just the thing about tech, right? Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I yeah, plugin on VS Code. Let's see what ChatGPT can advise us. Make sure that you install properly, open the extension panel, search pretty code format and confirm. Yep, I think we can confirm that it is installed. I've set it as the default. Hmm. All right, let's see if we can get this to work because I really want to show how it works in person. That's just the thing about tech, right? I've tested it before the webinar and everything was fine, and then now it doesn't work at all. So let me try actually disabling it and then re-enabling it. See if that works. Still nothing. This is so strange. And it's not even outputting any errors, so I have no idea why it's not working. Okay, let's come back to Prettier then, right? I'll try to figure out why it isn't working. But that's a real shame. I really wanted to show you guys how to configure it to use your custom formatting templates. So this isn't a Prettier error. This looks like a HTML error. Uh, Okay, let me try one more thing, right? I want to try opening up another project and seeing if it works there, right? That's the last thing I can think to try. Just give me a second. Ba, 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 ba. Let's try this one, right? Since we were working with Pine City Zoo. Yeah, okay, now it worked. Strange, right? It's working with this project, but not the other one. So okay, all right, let's take it from the top, right? So let's take this page, right? And let's just say I screw up I'm actually going to delete this configuration file. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So if I were to screw up my formatting, add a bunch of lines here and there that are not supposed to be there, I can now click on, or I can go to right click, format document with, and Prettier. And it'll automatically clean up everything for me, right? Sorry, I'm gonna have to try to rush through this now. You know what? Actually, let me skip on Prettier, and we'll cover it in another session because there's quite a lot to go through when it comes to configuring Prettier that I would like to show. But I don't think we're gonna have time now because of that that little delay. So let's jump into another plugin. The next one is actually quite simple to use. It's called code spell check. And it does exactly what you think it might do. So this code spell checker, there we are. Going to install that one. That says maybe the Pine City Zoo HTML file was already formatted. That's why it didn't work. Could be something like that. Although it should have been overriding it with Pretty's own styling or formatting, but I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to look into that and look if I at least if I can figure out why it wasn't working. If any of you have that issue with it, well, we'll know exactly why. Cool. So code spell checker, pretty straightforward, no real configuring required, and it does exactly what you think it does. It's a spell checker within your code files. And the nice thing though is that it doesn't just look at the spelling with your code with actual like tags, but within your paragraphs as well. It's going to check for spelling errors. Or if you have comments that you are that you're writing, it'll check for spelling errors there as well. And that's really, really handy because by default, VS Code doesn't. And so sometimes, more often than personally I would like to admit, there is spelling errors in my code. So you can see after I've installed it, a bunch of words in these paragraphs became highlighted. And let's just say if I change the name of that, right? If I misspelled a word, it's going to show me exactly where that error is and I can go in and fix it, right? This is just a very handy plugin to have. It's very passive, but it's just going to improve the quality of your work a little bit, right? Because it's kind of awkward when someone is looking at your code or you're handing a submission or a commissioned work and there's spelling errors in it. It's a very, very minor issue, but it looks really, really bad. So it's better, just install something like this. I don't know why VS Code doesn't have it by default. I feel like it's something that it should have, but it is what it is. And then the final plugin I wanted to cover today, which is also really, really easy to set up and get started with, is called Live Server. Search on that. And this one up here, right, with the purple icon. Now, what Live Server does is it runs your project as well, as the name suggests, a live server. What that means is when you edit your code and you save it, you don't have to go back to your browser and refresh it every time to view your changes. With Live Server, the change is going to be instantaneous, right? As soon as you make a change, it is going to reflect on your side. So to get started with it, once you've installed it, what you do is, okay, since we are working on the Koala page, let me just go and open it up. Oh, sorry, you don't open it up here. What you do is right-click on on the file you want to run and click on Open with Live Server. And it's going to open up your default browser with the file that you opened. And notice the URL is different now, right? It's not the actual location of your file within your computer, but it's this server directory. Now, this is particularly useful if you're working on two screens, but if you're working on one screen, it's just as well. And you can just split your screen as such and begin editing. Now with HTML, it's kind of useful, but I feel like when you're working with HTML5, where this plugin really shines is with your CSS. So let me open up my CSS file, and let's just say I'm not too happy with the size and positioning of this header image here, right? So I can find my header image tag. Let's just say I want it to be a little bit bigger, right? So I can go change it to 120. As soon as I click save, it refreshes there instantly. So for fine tuning your projects, it's ideal, right? Okay, but 120 is a little too big, right? So let me go down to 100, right? 100 is still a little big. You can bring it down to 90. There we are. And I'm kind of happy with that size, but the padding is a little bit too much on the top. So let's bring that down from 15 to 5 pixels. And there we have it, just like that. So when you're making these small, rapid changes, this live server is a dream. So you don't have to keep going back and forth to your browser and refreshing. You can just keep your code editor open on the side. As soon as you hit save, bam, it is refreshed automatically and you can view your changes instantly. So I think this is a pretty cool, pretty powerful plugin to have when it comes to optimizing efficiency. Any questions, guys? Or let me know actually if there's any other plugins that you use personally or that you know of that you think would also be very useful. Cool. No problem, William. Take your time. Now there's a lot of plugins that you can use for Visual Studio Code, and there are plugins that are specific to your specific languages. So the ones that I've listed here, whether you're using JavaScript, HTML, Python, Java, these will work for you, right? But then you get some that are specific to HTML or specific to Java that are going to make your life dealing with those projects a little bit easier. Unfortunately, we don't have enough time to go through as many or that many, but I'm thinking we'll probably do a follow-up to this one where we go into a few more. GitHub Copilot is a very, very useful plugin to have. So I think what we'll do is next week maybe, or maybe one of the weeks after that, we'll do another session like this. I'll get Prettier to work and I'll show you guys how to configure that up all the way. But if you want to get started and give Prettier a hand on your own, they have some documentation out here that is pretty extensive, and it lists all of the different options that you have and all of the different ways you can customize the formatting. I'll get into that in more detail in one of the follow-up sessions. But yeah, for now, I think that's all the plugins we have time to cover. Apologies for that. I have no idea why Prettier wasn't working. Tested it so extensively before we started, and then when you try to do it again, nothing works. Okay, let me just take a look at the chat. Keenan, will we have similar webinars for our particular courses that we are doing? Like, will you go in depth with extensions for Python, JavaScript, and React? Yeah, no, definitely. There's quite a lot of material to cover when it comes to extensions. So yeah, I think we can, I'll schedule webinars where we go into those specific languages. And I see William has dropped a list of plugins. I see quite a few that are uh, pretty cool to have. Autosave naturally goes without saying. Error lens. Error lens is, I'll show you guys how to work with that one. But error lens is fantastic because by default, when you use VS Code and there's an error, it'll just highlight it in red. But with a plugin like Error Lens, it'll actually add some text next to it and tell you exactly what the issue is. So for learning purposes, it's very, very powerful. It helps you identify where the errors are, and then it'll help you, it'll explain to you what the issue is. And I see quite a few other ones that are I feel essential. Some of these should have been by default with VS Code, but I guess they just wanted to keep the IDE as light as possible. Cool, guys. So I think we'll leave it there for today. Again, I apologize for that whole issue with Prettier. I'll try to get it to work, and then I'll show you guys how to configure that in a later episode. But I think I want to figure out why exactly it didn't work, and then share that with you guys as well, in case you find yourself in a similar situation. But by default, it should just be plug and play. But we'll save that for another episode. I hope you guys enjoyed the session. I hope you benefited something. If you don't have plugins on your VS Code editor, highly recommend that you do it. It's just going to make your life a whole lot better. It's going to make you more efficient. Like, for example, that the formatting ones, whether it's Prettier or the one that William listed, I forgot what it's called, it's basically going to give you free marks on your assessments if you think about it, because there's a category for formatting and these plugins will do it automatically for you. So definitely install some plugins to improve your efficiency and workflow. And with that, I think we will end the session. I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of the week, and I hope that, or I hope to see you again next week. Bye, everyone.